Hello guys and welcome back to Star Technology, where you join me back in a quite different looking island. Yes, that's right, I have done some work off camera and I have built just a little bit, if you want to call that building. I basically expanded the island a little bit. Where I'm standing here is where the original grass platform used to be. I moved it over there and made it into a bit of a tree farm here. And I've just added some of the paths with the block palette we talked about in the last episode with this oak plank tiles and the cobblestone. Our sieves are still here and I've moved some things here, preparing for what we're gonna start doing in this episode. So the first thing we want to do is we want to start fixing storage, and with that we're gonna be making the Colossal Chest, which is just requires a lot of wood and essentially acts like a huge chest. I have collected a bit of spruce wood here, but I'm not sure if this is gonna be enough. We do need 26 of this thing, so alright, we have enough to make 19. So we are gonna have to farm a bit more wood. Also, if you're wondering how I got this grass to be spread over here, I basically sieved some rooted dirt, which you get from sieving actual dirt. Over here, if you sieve dirt in a string mesh, you get rooted dirt, and if you sieve that, you get the grass seeds. There we go, and you just right click on dirt and it grows up, and we can harvest these too. Hopefully this should be enough. I think. Nope, we're missing a bit more. Just 8 more. Alright, and that is all our wood. We have our colossal chests. Now one of these have to be the kind of controller block, if you will, or the middle of it, and we do need a piece of iron for that, which I have done a bit of sieving off camera here, and I do have some ores here and there. We're gonna focus on the iron. Oh, and by the way, in terms of the cobblestone generator we did, I did move it here and I did speed it up. As you can see, all you do is you have the large cogwheel in front here, and then you have the small cogwheel, a large in front of it, and then you keep alternating, so small, large, small, and so on. Now if you wanted to speed up, you need to place an andesite casing on it, so you right click with an andesite casing on the gear that it's placed on, and it should be working, because if you don't do that, then the gear in front will spin faster than the one at the back and it will just break. So yeah, now we have the pump activated and we have already filled the drawer of cobblestone. So just to give you an idea of how fast we're generating, as you can see, we're generating a bucket almost, I want to say 2 seconds maybe? Yeah, about 2 seconds. So that's pretty good. We are pretty good on cobblestone. I also added this wooden barrel here, which we are going to need in order to passive something like soul sand, for example, which we'll need later on. But for now it's just sitting here, and I do know how to get water in it. You just have to click this disable fluids input from output side, but we can wait on that whenever we need it. Alright, so we have our iron, we can make the core. And essentially the way we build this is that we have it a 3x3x3 hollow structure, so something like this, with the core sitting over here. And there we go, we have formed the structure. As you can see, it's just a large chest with a ton of storage space. Now I think this can be upgraded, but this should be more than enough to last us through until we get applied energistics. Speaking of applied energistics, how are we even going to be managing a chest this large? I mean, we're not just going to dump our items in there, right? Well, there is a mod in this mod pack called Tom's Simple Storage mod, and this basically adds applied energistics like functionality in terms of the terminals and things like that. It does have some basic automation capabilities as well, but it's extremely basic, so I don't think I'm going to be using it for the time being. It can be useful though if you want to automate little things here and there. I have started sifting some other resources, but we are missing a few here and there. Oh no, we have the diamonds. So we first need to make the storage terminal and upgrade it to a crafting terminal. And with a bit of micro crafting later, we have our storage terminal. Now this thing that basically allows us to view what's inside of the inventory that is adjacent to it. And we want to upgrade it to the crafting terminal so that we can actually craft in it. And the way you use this is you basically place it adjacent to the inventory you want. And now we have access to that inventory back there. And basically all we can do now is similar to applied energistics. We take all of our items and we just put it inside the terminal. As you can see, it's going to show up in the chest over here, which is exactly what we want. And so we basically just dump everything inside and we should be fine. Probably the most satisfying feeling in modern Minecraft. Alright, so now that we have everything moved to the colossal chest, we have removed all the chest in the background. What's our next task? Good question. So I think we should probably let the quest book speak for itself here, and we should probably start getting into create. Because here's the thing, create will allow us to unlock some cheaper recipes in terms of plates and mixing stuff. So some of these dusts can be crafted in a crafting table. For example, bronze dust here can be crafted out of copper and tin in a crafting table, but doing it in a mixer is not more efficient, but it is faster. Not only that, some recipes, as far as I know, I don't know if it's changed for now, but it used to be that some recipes required the create mixer. I don't know if that's still the case, but we're going to get it anyway. We're also going to get the Encased Fan, which allows us to smelt things faster. Basically, all we have to do is just throw a stack of the item we want to smelt on the ground, wait 10 seconds, and then grab it. But to do all of that, first we actually need our create infrastructure, right? Power generation or rotation generator, water wheels, things like that. So let's go ahead and start getting the basics. Alright, so we have our basics for create here. We have our water wheel, we have our gearbox, our cogwheel, and an outside casing. I did forget to make a few more of these gears, but that should be pretty easy to make. There we go, we do have a little bit of cogwheels. So now it's time to set our create infrastructure, although I should probably grab some shafts as well. Alright, so obviously for create we need a way to generate rotation. We also need a way to transport rotation, right? So our water wheels are going to help us generate rotation, and these gearboxes and the cogwheels and stuff are going to help us transport rotation. Now I've built this little platform over here for us to start working with. Alright, so we'll keep it centered here. We'll go ahead and just bridge over a few blocks. We should be able to speed this up with 5 water wheels, a pretty good amount. If you do want to speed up the water wheel, I think you need to have multiple water wheels or a very high generation of rotation at least, if you want to speed this up to a higher capacity. Now, admittedly, I don't know a lot about create, so this is going to be a bit of a learning curve for me too. So we go ahead and place our water wheel here, and now I'm realizing this is probably not enough space. Should maybe go out like 2 blocks or so, but now we should be able to place all our 5 water wheels like so. We can go ahead and just vein mine all of this, and now we should be able to start speeding this up, because any machine we run, we want to run faster, and to run faster we need to speed up the rotation of this thing. So this is my chance to showcase it here. As you can see, we have a big gear and a small gear like so. I'm going to be referring to these as gears because cogwheel is a little bit of a long name. So now we put the large wheel and we encase this with andesite casing. It doesn't actually consume it, and you alternate with a small gear, and then you keep doing that, large gear, and then encase, small gear, and you keep doing that until you reach a pretty decent speed. I think I'm going to be doing that one more time, so we do this, and this is hopefully going to be the final time, I think. Hopefully this should be enough to run this. We could go ahead and test it out. So if I add a water source to the side of the wheel here, and I found out that actually adding a source on top of the wheel here in the top block is better than on the side. I don't know why. I do need more water sources though. I don't think you necessarily need 5, but I think you need more. I don't know, I don't really know much about create. This is just how I usually do it. Okay, so it seems like one of the water wheels broke, and I don't know why that's happening. Oh, another one broke. Okay, so I found out that basically all my water wheels were breaking when I placed the water, and that's because sometimes the water can spin in the 2 directions when you place it on top. So you're supposed to do it a bit like this. We can also destroy this bridge over here just in case. And we place our first water source, and it has to spin in one direction, is what I found at least. So if you spin it, if you put it here and it goes to the side over there, then it will break a water wheel. As you can see, it does seem to be working, although I will add a bit more water sources because that does sometimes impact the rotation generator. So basically, sometimes if we hook up machines to this, it might need a higher rotation speed to run. And so I'm just going to be placing extra water sources just in case. Now I think as soon as you place the water and it spins in the right direction, you are safe to break the blocks on top here, which I will do because it doesn't look that appealing really. None of that really looks appealing. I mean, look at this mess over here. But remember, this is kind of a temporary location for the base. Soon enough we'll be expanding in this direction, and we will have a pretty neat base. Maybe once we get like applied logistics and start with the actual technology. But for now, this is what we have to deal with. So now that we have basic create SU generation or rotation, I don't really know what it's called anymore, it's time to actually start getting some machinery. So we have 3 machines that we really want to get as a priority. We have the mechanical press, we have the mixer, and we have the encased fan, which is going to allow us to smelt things. Now all of these have their own parts as well, so we're going to need to be a bit careful here. So first up, the mechanical press, probably the simplest on the list to craft here. So here you go, this is the mechanical press right here, just an iron block, a cogwheel, and a block of iron. There we go, this should be the quest as well. Now the mixer does have multiple parts to it. So there's the actual mixer, then there's the basin, where you place your thing inside, the dust and whatever. Now I am aware that some recipes require the burner, but I don't think all of them do now. I think they kind of made a bit of a change to the pack here where not all recipes require. So over here are, I think, all the brewing recipes, so we'd want the mixing recipes. And for most of these, it does say low heated, so I think it's fine if you just have the basic burner, but I think we are going to need it. Before, it used to be that sometimes you don't, sometimes you do, but I think they changed it here. And this is the first time I actually know you can mix ingots into each other. This is going to make life so much easier, because I've always been aware of the dust, but apparently you can mix the ingots. That's nice. Anyway, yeah, we're going to need the basic burner as well as some kind of way to burn it, which is the flint and steel. We're also going to need a bit of charcoal, so I think we should probably get to smelting some wood here in order to get coal. Again, we're going to have an easier way to do so in just a bit, but that's fine. We can start doing that for now. Alright, so it seems like we've hit a kind of, not roadblock I want to say, but something where we do kind of have to place the mechanical press. Because the thing is, we could make the plate in an inefficient recipe, but it's not going to really be worth it since we already have the mechanical press, so might as well make good use of it. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to pick up something called the, I don't know what it's called, depot? Yeah, the depot, I don't know how it's pronounced. We're going to pick this up, and this allows us to basically place the item inside that we want to run the recipe on, instead of just throwing it on the ground, which is a lot neater and better. So we have our crates generation here. What we want to do is we kind of want to split it off into different directions, which is why I crafted all these gearboxes. So now we have one going this way, one going this way, or whatever. Now I do want to ideally raise it up a block, since this is a bit too low, so we can use some of these gearboxes to do so. So there you go, we have something that looks a bit like this. And now we could have these two sections here. Alright, we have this guy, we can encase it with andesite. If you want something to not connect, just right click with an andesite, this guy, the andesite casing. There you go. So now we have kind of 3 outputs here for the create stuff. So now what we could do is we can hook on the mechanical press up here. We can put the depot down there. And basically now anything we want to press into plates, we just place in the depot and it should work. So an example here, we want the 5 iron plates, right? So all we really have to do is pick up 5 pieces of iron. And if we head over to our depot here, what we can do is right click on it, and as you can see it will press it. Whoa, this is really fast. Yeah, so as you can see, the faster the rotation, the faster the machine actually is. Keep in mind that you will need extra water wheels or extra rotation generators if you want to speed up the machines like so. So in a bit we might actually hit a bit of a struggle here if we keep doing this kind of speed. But here we go, now we have the mechanical mixer at the quest. Now the mechanical mixer works in a bit of a different way, so it doesn't just directly receive power from this thing or rotation from this thing. You need to actually power to the gears, which is why we're going to be making another gearbox here. And we're going to be placing I think it was small gear is what needs to be placed. No, you need a big gear to be placed down here, diagonal to the mixer. Seems like the placement isn't too ideal here. I'd probably want to actually make the mixer a bit tall, so I don't really mind putting it up here. So we can have this right here. We can have the mixer right adjacent to it. Alright, so it seems like I've done a bit of a mistake here. So it is in fact a small cogwheel, and it doesn't have to be diagonal to it. It can just be like so. And as you can see, yep, overstressed. So we are going to need more water wheels to power this thing. So this thing can currently only power 1 machine. So let's go ahead and craft some more and see if this fixes the issue. They're really cheap anyway, they're just some wood, like so, and some shafts, so no problem. Alright, so I did add about 3 or 4 more water wheels, I don't really remember. But yeah, we have the mixer now functional, we have the gear on top and the mixer. Now under the mixer, like maybe 2 blocks or 1 block, we should have a basin, which is where we place our items. And then we can have the burner under it over here. I know this isn't really the ideal setup, but I can fix it. Don't you just love it when you cut a tree down and there's 1 log that's remaining on the top? Amazing, right? Alright, so what we could do here is we can just add some stairs like so. So basically, we can, climb up here in order to put whatever we want down there, just to kind of make it aesthetically look good. Now on the back here, we ideally want to keep it open, or actually we can access the burner down here, so we can add fuel while mixing. So this thing basically works. We add some kind of fuel, furnace fuel, into the burner down there. We light it up with a flint and steel, which I've crafted over here, and then we put the ingredients at the top and it starts mixing. Alright, so the final thing left for us to do in Create now is to make the Encased Fan, which is optional for us in this case, but I would definitely like to get this upgrade. So first we need the 4 iron plates, and I think we're out of iron, so it's probably time to start sieving and smelting. Alright, so I have set the iron to smelt over here, and while that happens, we can go ahead and create something called the wireless terminal, which will basically save us running around here and there in order to get to the terminal every single time, which is extremely cheap. We have everything. We really just need to put it together, and with this final comparator, we should have our wireless terminal. Now the range on this isn't the best, so it's only like 15 blocks. So as you can see back here, we can't really access it. This is the range, which is pretty good. So basically, if we're in our create area doing whatever, and then we go over there, all we have to do is just cross the path here, and we should be able to access it instead of running all the way to the front over here. Anyway, our iron is getting ready now. We need 4 iron. Alright, so we can go ahead and make the propeller and the encased fan. Now we will need lava in order to power this thing, so I ideally want to make another lava bucket here, since the one we made last episode is currently in use in the cobblestone generator. And lava is basically used in this case in order to kind of smelt the things. So that said, while this happens, let me go ahead and set up the actual way that we're going to be smelting things. Alright, so we're facing a bit of an issue here. So basically, if I want to place the encased fan on any of these, basically this thing can pull or push. And in order for it to smelt things, it needs to push. So if I place it here, it just pulls me against it. And up here also does the same, but up here it just go ahead and push, and it's pretty strong because of the rotation. So I think the smelting is going to be pretty good. I think I can still make this work though. I can just kind of build a little bit of a staircase up there, which is fine. Look at the range on this thing. Alright, so this is kind of how it's going to look like here. Basically, we're going to have a little section here of this in the middle here. This is where the fan is, this is where the press is. And we're going to have our lava buckets be right here in front of the fan and the trapdoor. And basically any item we want to smelt, we just throw in here, we open the trapdoor and we let it blast it with the lava as soon as we put it there. Let's go actually see if it's ready now or not. The lava does seem to be ready, so let's go ahead and grab it and head over to our smelting section. Here we can go ahead and place the lava right here. Now we do need to be careful not to step inside of the thing because it does damage us. As you can see, it does burn us and kind of obstructs our jumping abilities. Let's just go. Alright, so just to showcase how this thing works, we can go ahead and smelt a stack of tin real quick. So basically, we want to place this right here, open the trapdoor, and just wait a little bit. We should keep some distance so we don't pick it up. It should take about from 10 to 20 seconds in my experience to kind of smelt a stack. It's better to bulk smelt than to single item smelt. And sometime later, these have been turned into tin ingots. So as you can see, this does work. It's way faster than trying to smelt a stack of tin in a furnace, and that also kind of obsoletes the furnace here. So yeah, now that we've finished with the create section, what's the next objective here? Are we going to get into LV? Are we going to make some primitive machines? Or are we just gonna kind of look at some of the ULV stuff here, the primitive steelworks or whatever? I think the best move to go here is going to be to start getting the coke oven, because we will need a lot of treated wood for some machines we can get in the future. These aren't going to be helpful right now, necessarily, since these are mostly used for things like just crops, for example, this guy. These two are multi-block versions of our smaller barrels that we have over there. So we don't really need it necessarily right now. What we do need is maybe a little bit of creosote oil. It's good to have it on hand. And something else we're also going to need is fire bricks for the primitive blast furnace and the primitive ore factory. And both of these do have something in common. They all require clay and sand. This guy requires clay and bricks. But now that we have our smelting thing on create over there, smelting bricks shouldn't really be a problem. We just throw in a bunch of clay over there and we should have our brick dust out. But this actually, I just noticed right now, we do have this latex extraction thing, which is going to take forever if we don't do it right now. Since this thing basically is a single block. This is a multi-block, but the thing here, right here, is a single block. This guy is new. I haven't tried it yet. I do want to ultimately try this. And basically what it does is you place it adjacent to the thermal one, you place it adjacent to a jungle sapling or a jungle tree, a fully grown jungle tree, and it should produce you latex. As you can see here in JEI, it produces random fluids, and for a jungle it produces latex, which can then be crafted into rubber, not fluid solidifier, usually the bucket rod. There you go, you just place it and you get rubber. Rubber you can mix in a crane mixer with sulfur to get cured rubber, which then you can just shape into whatever you want, so rubber sheets or whatever. So now we haven't really tried this before. I haven't really tried this before, so I'm leaning a bit more towards this. It does involve a lot more microcrafting, I will give you that, but I think it's a bit more efficient. See, you can place in a wooden screw and it will give you latex passively. Now the other options require fertilizer, so some kind of fertilizer, bone meal or whatever. So we're just going to go with the basic wood screw option. 8 seconds for 100 millibuckets of latex. That's so much faster than the other one, so we should be fine. So, and it's pretty cheap. It's just some usual jungle stuff here with bricks. Now the input and output buses could be a bit of a problem here, but it does seem like we can make the input and output bus. So we just have a chest with an ULV machine hull. That thing is basically wrought iron, which you have made before. Red alloy cable, which does require rubber. Yeah, I don't think we can make this now. I guess we'll have to stick with the inefficient option then, the arboreal extractor. I will be making this later, hopefully, if there's a need to, because at that point we probably have access to just making rubber chemically. But I guess we can go with this option now. Now this does bring me on to another tool that we can actually make, which is the file, which we do need to make. This thing allows us to make rods basically. Now the server over here we can just craft right away, but we do have the gears here which require the iron rods, and the only way to make them at this tier is to use a file with a iron ingot. We also need a wrench, it seems, which we haven't crafted yet. Now ideally I'd like all my tools to be crafted out of wrought iron, since wrought iron has way more durability than normal iron, and it's pretty easy to make. As you can see, it's just iron in a campfire, no problem there. And this is basically how I craft a wrench. Now a wrench is probably one of the most important tools, if not the most important tool. You'll be using it to configure machines, to rotate things, to basically break machines sometimes in later tiers, maybe when it's faster. But for now, we just use it for regular crafting. So here we go. This is how you make the iron gear, and finally the arboreal extractor. Now we do have a jungle sapling here, so we can go ahead and just place it maybe this edge over here. We can go ahead and make it grow and place an arboreal extractor adjacent to it. Now if the arboreal extractor is working, it should kind of light up, which it's not here. So yep, there we go. It should have this kind of yellowish light to it. And it is generating, but very, very slowly. It generates like 25 millibuckets per maybe 8-10 seconds, something like that. Yeah, as you can see, maybe it's been buffed a little bit, 28. But yeah, it's not that fast either way, so we're gonna have to wait quite some time. Which is why I kind of set it up early here, so that we can focus on crafting our primitive multi-blocks. And while we finish crafting the primitive multi-blocks, this should have a decent amount of latex. Alright, this is a chance here for me to talk about EMI here, the EMI trees. Now, let's say we want to have a large craft, for example, like the coke oven, and we want to make the 25 bricks, but we don't know how much it's gonna really take on each resource. What we can do is on the recipe here, we can click this view recipe tree icon, and this will open up a tree. We can go ahead and scroll up to however much we want to craft, so 25 in this case. Now we want to know the raw resources, so we click on this resource, and it seems like the way here is to either bulk blast it or smelt it or whatever. It doesn't really matter in this case, we just go ahead and do whatever. So basically we go ahead and click this heart icon here, set as default recipe, and we keep doing that until we go back to the raw materials. So we have this recipe, we set that, and some recipes will be already set because the only way to make clay blocks here logically is this. We can't go ahead and change it, so for us here we want the dust and water to make this guy because we still don't have access to making the raw small clay. So we can set it up to this, and it's going to tell us exactly how much dust we need, how much water we need, and in turn everything else. We can even go ahead and set up a recipe here, for example, for crushing, and then we can know the total amount of sand that we're going to need for all of this. So it seems like we're going to need 196 sands to craft all of this. As you can see, this is basically a crafting chain. Now in this case, it might not be so useful, But when you have a large craft, for example, like circuits, we are going to be using a lot. We're going to be using a lot of this feature when it comes to crafting circuits, because they are one of the toughest things to craft. It requires a lot of components. We will get to that when we get to that. But for now, we can go ahead and start crafting the coke oven bricks. Let's do this. And here we go, our 30 coke oven bricks. Now I made it 30 because we do need some for the actual controller itself and the coke oven hatch. And here is our coke oven. Now the hatch does require us to make a wooden barrel, which, surprise surprise, you need sticky resin. Now the cool thing about this mod pack is that sticky resin isn't too complicated to make. So you have sticky resin, which comes from slime ball. Slime ball comes from spores, and spores comes from sieving. And we did sieve a little bit of mud earlier. I think that's where it comes from. Yeah, it comes from sieving mud. Now this can be duplicated, but it does require the multi-block, which is one of the main reasons I do want to get the multi-block actually. Because these Latex spores can be used to make the slime ball, the sticky resin, and the sticky resin is not only used in a bunch of different recipes, but it was also used to get rubber and glue. For now we only need one though, so I will keep one for us to duplicate later. For now we can just run it through this guy. I know this is a bit of an overkill here, since this is gonna take 10 seconds anyway, just like the furnace, but hey, we're not wasting any fuel at least. And we'll take what we can get at this point, right? You know what I just realized? I picked up the slime ball for a split second, but the quest didn't actually count. So looks like we're gonna have to do it again. It's fine though, we're gonna be making a bunch of these later, but we do have to be a little bit more careful when we handle these, when we handle the quests later. So for now we have our iron rods. Now these guys can be easily turned into the long one via a hammer. There we go. And now all we have to do is just shift click the recipe, and we would be able to if we had the wooden mallet, which is really easy to craft. Another tool. And here we go, we have our wooden barrel. And now we should be able to make our coke oven hatch, which is basically the coke oven's way of extracting resources. Alright, so this right here is a little section I built here. This is meant to be for the primitive multi-blocks. So over here we have just spaces for the 3x3 multi-blocks, and over here we have a space for the primitive ore factory, which we're going to be making soon. Now, I'm pretty sure we're not going to be using all of these, but I just made them because it looked good like that. I might be making the steel blast furnace, so this might take a space here. Now in terms of the barrels and the farms and things like that, these are going to go on the other side over here. I do want to keep them kind of separated from each other. So with that said, let's go ahead and construct the coke oven. So this is as simple as just the hatch over here. I could disable that, and this basically outputs the creosote oil, and we can have all of the bricks like so. We're gonna have the controller in the middle like usual, with all the bricks around it, and we just surround it. This is a hollow multi-block structure as far as I'm aware. Yep, it's a hollow multi-block structure, so we're left with an extra. And basically what we do here is we put in the logs. Let's see if we have any more spruce logs left. I'd rather waste those. We do have spruce logs, so with that said, we can go ahead and put our spruce logs in here, and it should start burning the spruce logs for creosote and charcoal, as you can see in the top corner. Now it does take a pretty long time for this to finish, but that should be fine. We don't really need a lot of it, so that's fine. Now we can go ahead and make something called the fluid cell for early storage, because this coke oven hatch can only handle 32 buckets. We are going to need more, so I'd rather make it fill up. So the fluid cell can also handle 32 buckets, so that's going to be 64 in total, which I'd rather get. Now for this we will need the quest for bronze and brass, but luckily there are easier mixing recipes as we've just seen. So for bronze we do have one. Do we have one for brass? We do have one for brass. Nice. Alright, so this right here is a chance for me to showcase how the create mixer actually works. Now I don't recommend putting all the fuel in here, since a simple wooden plank I think should be able to last quite some time. I will put 3 just in case. And what we do is we first light it up with flint and steel. Now it does consume the fuel even if you're not actually using it, so I'd recommend like putting it in and then taking it out, or putting a limited amount in. So we throw in our first ingredient, our second ingredient, and we watch as it mixes. Because the rotation speed is high, it mixes quickly, and we have some bronze. Now we can make the second one, which is the brass, which is just copper and zinc. And there we go, we have our brass ingot. As you can see, it doesn't consume everything, but if you do leave it running, it will burn all the planks. Now we have access to the fluid cell quest. which isn't too bad to craft at all. So basically this is using two things. So 2 copper plates and a barrel, and the second one is just 4 bronze, 4 tin, and a piece of glass, which isn't bad at all. That does although mean we're gonna wanna start mixing a little bit more here, because we're running out of bronze. So once we have the create fluid tank as well as the fluid cell frame, what we do is I think we place the cell frame and we right click with the tank, yes. And now we have our thermal fluid cell. This should be our quest complete, perfect. Now this thing is extremely customizable, so I will be making a pretty heavy use of it in the early game. So basically you can go ahead and place it, it does nothing on its own, and you can go ahead and configure it to output/input. So we want it to input from behind, and we will set it to output or whatever whenever we need. But for now we just want it to input from behind and take in what's in the coke oven hatch. Alright, now at this point part of our latex is ready. As you can see, it's extremely slow. I've done all of this and there's still like a bucket inside. Anyway, we can go ahead and grab that bucket and we can go ahead and craft it into rubber itself. There we go. So just to pick up the quest right here. Now in order to make it into cured rubber, we have to mix it with sulfur, and it seems like they actually debuffed it here. Since it used to give 4 per recipe, now it gives 3. Anyway, here is a piece of sulfur from our sieving. That's also a quest apparently. And we want to throw it in with our rubber, and it should mix into cured rubber. Now the quest does require 4, so we are going to need to wait for another bucket of latex, but that shouldn't really be that big of a problem. At that point, we can actually start making our multi-block latex extractor, or whatever you want to call it. Which again, it isn't too expensive, but it does require we make red alloy because of the input and output bus, the input bus and the output hatch at least. Now the episode is getting a little bit long here, so I want to kind of do the final thing here and then we can call it off. So I do want to get all the fire brick related multi-blocks, so the primitive ore factory and the steelworks. So that's going to be a total of a stack and a half of fire bricks. Now fire bricks are kind of known to be a little hard to make. As you can see, it's all pre-bookmarked here. I did it before. So we need a stack and a half. Now if you hold shift, it does increase by 16, which is pretty handy. So there we go, that's what we need. So we only really need 6 stacks of sand, which is not too bad. We can go ahead and just do the usual steps. So crush it down into dust, into clay, and then we can smelt it into bricks, and so on and so forth. The thing is, we will need a lot of mortars though, because these do take a lot. So we need 6 stacks, and our iron mortar currently can handle only about 2 stacks of crafting, I want to say. So yeah, we're gonna need a bunch of mortars, but other than that, it shouldn't really be hard to get. Now the cool thing here is that the fire clay dust, after you craft it, you don't have to necessarily put it in a compressor. It can just be in a press, and we've all seen how fast the press is, so we're fine. Smelting it's also not that bad, so it shouldn't really be too tough to make these guys. Now I will make a little bit more than I should, because I do feel like we do need a bit more. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started with crafting, I guess. And there we go, now we have our fire bricks. Now our next task is going to be to get the actual multi-blocks. So the first one is going to be the primitive blast furnace, and the second one is going to be the primitive ore factory. Now the primitive ore factory we're going to be using in the next episode, but I will try to operate the primitive blast furnace between episodes because it's pretty slow. Now the primitive ore factory also requires some bronze, but that shouldn't really be a problem now that we have the mixer. Let's start by getting the primitive blast furnace, and that requires 6 wrought iron. I will definitely be doing a lot of sievings in between episodes because we are kind of always constantly running out of resources. This episode has been a lot of sieving, by the way. I have been sieving in the middle of crafting things here and there, so yeah. Oh, and by the way, about that fire over here, don't be worried. This trapdoor will never burn. It just catches on fire for no reason. I don't even know why this is a feature, like either make it burn or not catch on fire, but you know, it's what it is. So with a simple screwdriver here, we are able to make the primitive blast furnace if it shift clicks everything. There we go. So now we have our primitive blast furnace multi-block, and the cool thing about this thing is that it doesn't require any input or outputs. So it just builds it like so. So what you want it to do is have a 3x3 like so. You place the controller in the middle. and then you hollow out the inside and you go up 3 blocks like so, and the structure should be formed. There we go. Now the primitive blast furnace recipes are basically, there are numerous recipes, but the one that we mainly crafted it for was for steel. As you can see, there are quite a bit of recipes for ways of making steel, but we're mainly going to be using the one that is iron and coal in order to get steel. So that means we will need a constant supply of charcoal, which is kind of a good thing because we did operate this guy. So we do have a decent amount of charcoal, and it seems like this was a task here. So we're going to need quite a bit of charcoal, and the cool thing about that is that making wrought iron is pretty easy. It's just in the campfire. So making steel, we can half the time needed to make steel from 90 to 40 seconds. And this will be pretty convenient. I will be making steel off camera a lot, since this thing is extremely slow, and I will also be running this thing for a while. We do have 15 buckets right about now. Our Arboreal Extractor is still at 2 buckets. I told you this thing is slow, but at least now we're almost at our goal. Actually, we can craft the other Arboreal Extractor, the multi-block one, but I will leave it to the next episode because this episode is kind of getting long. So we have our cured rubber. Now we can go ahead and put it onto the metal press, and we should have our rubber sheet. Now these guys are used to coat cables in the early game. So as you can see, it's used for coating tin cables, red alloy cables, cobalt, nickel. We'll mainly be coating tin and red alloy. These are the main ones we're going to be coating. So there's another kind of information tab here for multi-block creation and wall sharing that we have reached. Now the multi-block creation, basically, it just tells you that you can go ahead and view the multi-block creation AMI. You can go ahead and press U on the actual thing, and you can see the multi-block preview. You can see how it's made. You can see, if you click on the block, what possible blocks are there. If you hover over some of these inputs and outputs, it does say, for example, for the fire bricks, there's a minimum count. It doesn't say in this multi-block, but usually it does say minimum 1 or minimum 4, and then you can go over that limit, for example, or maximum something. For the wall sharing, it says that you can go ahead and just kind of wall share multi-blocks. So basically, if I were to make a second primitive blast furnace, I wouldn't have to make another fire brick 3x3 here. I could just make a 2 like so. So it would look a bit like this. And then I would be able to place the controller and fill the block in, which is pretty nice if you're running out of resources, but I don't really think we're going to be wall sharing a lot of multi-blocks in this series. It really depends, we're going to see. So back to what we were doing here, we also need to get the primitive ore factory, which mainly requires brass, so it's not that bad. It does require more brass than we have though, so we need to mix a bit more. And here we go, we have our primitive ore factory. Now the problem with this thing is that it does require the input buses and hatches that we weren't able to get earlier. But now that we're able to make the latex, we can get it. As I said, I will dive a bit more into it into the next episode because this episode is getting long. Also, I do need to upgrade our latex production if I want to have any chance of making multiple input buses and output buses. So I'm going to be waiting on that one. But for now, I guess we have everything we need except for the bronze. I will be crafting the bronze stuff off camera because, you know, they're not that hard. It's just some copper and tin, which you have a ton of. And we just put them in different shapes and forms here and there. It's not that bad. So with that said, I will be ending the episode over here in this rainy day over here. So thank you everyone for watching. Leave any suggestions or tips or anything you want in the comments down below. If you like this, like, subscribe, and follow the series, and I will see you guys in the next episode.